Math people, this is chapter 4. We're going to call this lesson 1/2. It's not lesson 1, it's before lesson 1. Chapter 4 is all about percents, but before we get into the percents part of this chapter, we're going to do a little bit of work with fractions and decimals that will relate and help us be better and more efficient at working with percents and the things that we plan on doing in this chapter. So this Chapter 4, Lesson 1/2 has two parts to it. This is part 1, and this is converting fractions to decimals. Part 2 of this lesson is the reverse of that, converting decimals to fractions. But for converting fractions to decimals, I'm going to explain two different ways in which you can do this, and hopefully you can use both to be successful at conversions. Here we go. Method 1, which is the preferred method, but won't always work, and you'll see why in a moment. Method 1. And I'm going to put a little star by this because this is the way that I'd prefer that you do it. For method 1, we need to do a very brief review of our place values. So I'm going to come up with a random number. And this first 5 is our ones place, but what I care about is the places to the right of the decimal. As a reminder, this is our tenths place. This 3 is our hundredths place. This 4 is our thousandths. And just for good measure, we'll go one more place value. We could go further, but after the thousandths is our 10,000ths. All right, quick place value review. The reason I did that is because for method 1, you're going to, let's give ourselves an example fraction to convert. I'm going to give you the fraction 1/5, which maybe you know what that is off the top of your head, but if you didn't, to convert 1/5 to a decimal, one of the things you could do is change your fraction to a fraction that has one of these place values as the denominator. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, and so on. So for example, 1/5, I could multiply this whole fraction by 2 and form an equivalent fraction, 2 tenths. And 2 tenths, when you read that out loud, would look like this, 2 in the tenths place. So to convert 1/5 to its decimal form, one method is to convert the fraction, if possible. This will not always be easily possible, but convert the denominator to one of the place values, and that is how you would write the decimal. Let's try another one. Let's say we had the fraction 3/20ths. 20ths is not one of the place values in our decimal place values, but if I was to convert this by multiplying both numbers by 5, I know that 20ths times 5 would make this into hundredths. Hundredths is one of our place values. 3 times 5 is 15. So 15 hundredths, when I write this, 0 and 15 hundredths. My 5 is in the hundredths place. This is how you would write 15 hundredths. Now, I've said it already a few times, but I'll say it once more. This is a good method because there's really no work involved other than a quick fraction conversion, but this won't always work. For example, if you had the fraction 2/7, 2/7 is not going to easily get to tenths or hundredths or thousandths or 10,000ths. And therefore, this method of going to a place value denominator won't work so well. So method 1, great, doesn't always work. A second method that will always work no matter what, here's your second method. Method 2. For method 2, let's take that fraction that we just wrote, 2/7, and we want to get it from a fraction to a decimal. That's the skill that we're trying to accomplish here. 2/7 or any fraction, just think to yourself, what operation does a fraction show? When you see something written as a fraction, this is another way this year we've learned that you write division. So although this can be read as 2/7, this can also be read as 2 divided by 7. And so to get this fraction into a decimal, we could just simply do the division problem that this presents us with. So if I turned 2/7 into a division problem, 2 divided by 7, it actually did this division. The result would be the decimal form of this fraction. So let's give that a try. 2/7 is going to go a little bit far in terms of how many digits it turns into. So I'm going to say we're going to stop at the thousands place, tenths, hundreds, thousands. And this is our approximate decimal form of 2/7. 2/7 in decimal form this is not exact because it goes on further, but it's about 0.285. And I'm giving you permission to stop at the thousands place if it ever seems like something's going to go on for quite some time. And we're going to try this with a few more fractions. As we do each problem, we'll decide, are we going to do method 1, where it's turn the fraction into a place value fraction, or method 2, simply just do some long division. So example 1 says write 3/8 as a decimal, and me being someone who's fairly good at determining can I turn eighths into one of those place values, I think I know which method I would use, and that would be method 2. I'm going to have to do some long division. Eighths is not easily going to turn into tenths, hundredths, or thousands, and so on. And so I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and do some division. This is 3 divided by 8. So I'm going to set that up, 3 divided by 8. I'm going to zip through the long division. Hopefully by this point you feel comfortable with long division. If not, you're definitely going to need to see me so we can set up some time to work on that skill. But I'm going to fast forward ahead to my final result, and I'll let you double check my long division. All right, so after doing my long division, I ended up with an exact final answer of 375 thousandths. That's 0.375. So that tells me that 3/8 in decimal form is 0.375. Boom, done. That would be my final answer here. Let's go to another one. Second example, think to yourself, are you going to try method 1, converting to a place value, or method 2, long division? Hopefully your choice was what I'm going to do, which is simply turn this into an easy place value denominator. I know that 25ths, when multiplied by 4, can get to hundredths, which is a place value. So whatever you do on the bottom of the fraction, do on the top to keep it equivalent. 1/25 is the same thing as 4 100ths, 4 hundredths. Say that out loud, 4 hundredths. So 4 in the hundredths place, tenths, hundredths. This 4 hundredths is the same as 1/25, because 1/25 is equal to 4 hundredths. If that's not settling well for you, if you're having trouble seeing the place value aspect of this, feel free to do long division. You'll still arrive at the same answer of 0.04. It's just a matter of how you'd like to get there. All right, 2 more examples and we'll call it quits on this skill. For number 3, giving you a mixed number. So that's a whole number and a fraction, 1 4/5, a mixed number. When you have a mixed number, word to the wise, ignore the whole number part. We know that this is going to be 1 and something. 1 and 4/5. So the 1 whole, set that to the side. That's going to be the whole number part of your decimal. Instead of being 0 point something, this is going to be 1 point something. So all we need to concern ourselves with is the 4/5 part of this. The 1 whole, it's just the first part of the whole number. So 4/5, decide for yourself, are you going to do the place value denominator method, or are you going to set yourself up some long division? For me, I know that fifths can very easily go to tenths or hundredths, whatever place value you see. So Multiply this thing by 2, and you get to tenths. Multiply the top by 2. 4/5 is equal to 8 tenths. So 8 tenths is just 0.8. And that would make our final answer here. 1 4/5 is equivalent to 1.8. Final answer. Pretty simple. And again, if you would prefer, you could do the long division. 4 divided by 5, you get 0.8. Pair that with the 1, and it's 1.8. Final answer. All right, last one. And that would be convert 2 1/3 to a decimal. So for starters, I know it's going to be 2 and something, 2 point something. So I'm going to ignore the 2 in 2 1/3 and just deal with the 1/3. And right off the bat, you need to think, are you going to be method 1 or method 2? Method 1 converting to a place value denominator, or method 2 doing long division. I think most of us would arrive at the conclusion that thirds is not easily going to turn into a nice place value denominator like tenths, hundredths, thousands, etc. So I gotta do some long division. 1 divided by 3. There's your division problem. 3 can go into 1 0 times. We need to add a decimal and a 0. 3 can go into 10 thrice, 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, add a 0, bring it down. 3 can go into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract. And I think you're realizing there's a pattern here. I'm going to keep getting a 3 in my quotient, followed by a 10 when I bring down a 0. And don't continually bang your head against the wall. 3, 3, 3, 3. It's going to be the same thing. Once you notice that the digit is going to repeat, stop. There's no point in doing the same division problem over and over and over and over again. In math, there is a way to let someone know that your final answer has some repetition to it, some repeating to it. And that is with this symbol, like here. This line over the 3 tells me, tells you, tells anyone who knows math that the digit 3 repeats forever and ever and ever and ever. Rather than just writing a bunch of 3s, or even worse, instead of doing this, this to me is 2.333, the end. In reality, 2 1/3 is 2.3 with the 3 repeating forever. So let's be precise. We can be precise by using this symbol, and that is putting this line over any digit or digits that happen to repeat. In this example, the 3 repeats, so this would be my final answer, 2.3 with the line over the 3. And that is what 2 1/3 looks like in decimal form. That is it for Skill 1 for Chapter 4, Lesson 1/2. The other video lesson you can watch, and that's going the reverse from a decimal to a fraction. I will see you on that video. Ta-ta for now.